He was questioned about a friend, but the insistence on the question made him uncomfortable. The young man denied there was anything between them, trying to end the matter once and for all. The other person, however, just watched him silently, not seeming convinced by the answer they received. Elsewhere, a group of friends gathered to eat and drink, but Gyeongjun wasn't in the mood. He ignored the friend calling him to drink, focused on his cell phone while waiting for an important response. The friend watching him knew the real reason for that bad mood. Gyeongjun was acting like that because the girl he liked had started dating a guy named Taiun. Gyeongjun snapped, denying that was the reason. But his exaggerated reaction only confirmed his friend's suspicion, who just complained about the noise. Suddenly, the notification he had been waiting for arrived. Upon seeing the message on the screen, a subtle and malicious smile appeared on his face. The plan was underway. His anger shifted focus. Gyeongjun grabbed his friend and told him to shut up, warning him not to say Taejun's name out loud. Without further explanation, Gyeongjun got up from the table. When his friends asked where he was going, the answer was direct and shocking. He was going to get the drugs. The others were left speechless, asking about the bill. Gyeongjun just said he would pay before leaving, treating his friend with contempt. Alone at the table, the friends tried to convince themselves that they had nothing to do with it. After all, they weren't the ones giving the substance, and it wasn't even prohibited in competitions. With a determined expression, Gyeongjun continued with his plan, not caring about the consequences. Far away, life went on as normal. Taejun was walking calmly until a sudden heat wave hit him, leaving him confused and sick. Something was very wrong. The young man felt an unbearable heat and didn't understand why. His suppressants should be working, but something was clearly wrong. In the office, the doctor clarified the situation. The discomfort was just a side effect of the special suppressant he needed to take because of the seminar. He received an injection to help, but the pain of the application caught him by surprise, making him complain. Worried, he asked if he should miss class. The doctor said it wouldn't be necessary as long as he avoided any intimate contact. That made him reflect. Maybe it was a good thing he hadn't dated anyone until now, since the doctor's recommendation wouldn't be difficult to follow. While waiting for the elevator, he thought that, in the end, almost everyone he knew also used suppressants. It wasn't that uncommon. And then, a thought cheered him up a bit. From that day on, he would see Lee Taejun much more often. But that excitement was complicated. He admitted to himself that being sick in the last few days had even been good, as it helped him stop thinking so much about Taejun. Reading the doctor's instructions, he realized that the situation was more complex than he imagined. There were many things he would need to be careful about. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. It was Taejun asking if he was feeling any side effects. The young man, surprised, said he had never experienced this before. Before we continue, can I tell you something real quick? I realized that a lot of people watch the videos, but don't subscribe to the channel. And sometimes, it makes me wonder if I'm really on the right path. Because I make these videos with genuine care, thinking of those who enjoy these stories as much as I do. So, if you like this type of content, if these stories made you feel something, subscribe to the channel. This helps me much more than you can imagine. And that gives me a reason to keep bringing these stories to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Truly. Now, continuing the story. The fright was so great that it made him jump. Taejun, not understanding the exaggerated reaction, asked what his problem was. Ignoring personal space, Taejun held him and went straight to the point, asking if his partner was an athlete. The young man, embarrassed, denied it. Taejun then began to explain the danger. Athletes use similar suppressants, and the mixing of bodily fluids could cause serious problems, especially since some used extra substances. The grip on his shoulder became firmer, emphasizing the seriousness of the warning. Taejun got even closer, almost whispering. The proximity and intensity of the warning left the young man completely speechless, paralyzed in place. The proximity and intensity of Taejun's warning caused an unexpected shiver in the young man, who was completely paralyzed. Surprised, he admitted that he had been startled. Taejun found his reaction amusing and childish, questioning why he was so shocked by the subject. As he led him down the hall, Taejun finished the advice enigmatically, telling him to simply stay away from guys like him. The boy, however, was dwelling on the situation. His initial plan was to destabilize Taejun, but he himself ended up being caught off guard. Curiosity took over, and he began to wonder what would really happen if he got involved with someone under the conditions Taijin described. Taijin broke the tense atmosphere, playfully messing up his hair. He explained that the side effects could be so bad that the two of them would need treatment together. The combination of the intimate conversation with the physical contact was too much for the young man, who hid his face, completely embarrassed. He tried to compose himself, but it was evident that Taijin's words and actions had deeply affected him. Gathering courage, he tried to question what Taijin was talking about in an attempt to regain control of the situation. But it was too late. The plan to destabilize Taijin had failed miserably, and now he was the only one who was completely confused. Unable to take it anymore, he tried to run away, but Taijin chased after him, insisting that he tell him about his personal life. The young man could only tell him to shut up. Taijin caught up to him with a hug from behind, surprising him. The young man pointed out that they had never had this kind of conversation before. Trying to change the subject, he asked to go inside soon. He reminded Taijin that he had always been a good friend, keeping all the secrets entrusted to him. Taijin's expression changed. Sincerely, he said that the young man was his refuge, a calm and safe place. The sudden confession left him speechless. He remained silent, processing what he had just heard. After all the teasing, that sincere statement was what impacted him the most. Despite Taijin's confession the night before, the routine continued. In the room, the young man asked about the seminar, wanting to understand if it would be like a teaching internship. The young man explained that it wasn't complicated at all. They would just need to put together a resume, a task that, in theory, seemed quite simple. But his explanation was suddenly interrupted. Everyone in the room turned to the door. 2 other students arrived, bringing coffee for everyone. With a friendly smile, they offered the drinks, trying to make the atmosphere more relaxed before the start of class. With everyone settled, the presentation began. The goal of the seminar was to join the forces of the sports and physical education departments. While listening, the young man couldn't resist and took a peek to the side. Taijin, who was sitting right next to him, thought to himself that he hadn't planned on being so close to him, until, inevitably, their eyes met. The young man was so embarrassed that he choked on his coffee, looking away immediately. Taijin leaned in, looking concerned about the young man's sudden reaction. But then, a wave of heat washed over Taijin. He found it strange, as he shouldn't be feeling so hot in this weather. That's when he looked at the cup on his desk. A terrible suspicion began to form in his mind. Stirring the drink, he saw a dark liquid dripping from the straw. At that moment, Taijin understood everything. Someone had spiked his coffee. Taijin slammed his hand on the table, frustrated. He blamed himself for not anticipating it. The anger was more at his own naivety than at the act itself. After all, it wasn't the first time they had tried something like that with his food or drink. He was already used to this kind of low blow. The problem was the timing. Even if it wasn't the time of his cycle, the effects of the drug were already starting to manifest. He needed to act fast. The change in Taijin's behavior did not go unnoticed. The young man realized that something was very wrong and worried about his colleague's condition. He tried to focus on the class, but it was impossible. The professor kept talking about the assignment, but the young man's mind was elsewhere, feeling the tension in the air. Suddenly, Taijin approached him, breaking the little space that existed between them. The young man knew what was happening. Seeing Taijin's state, he considered the only sensible option: get him out of there as quickly as possible before the worst happened. Without thinking twice, the two got up in the middle of class, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. The professor, caught by surprise, asked for an explanation. Taijin, maintaining his composure, informed him that he had already spoken with Professor Huang about needing to leave. With his arm around the young man, he made up an excuse about an association event, saying that he needed to take his seminar partner with him. And with that, he guided him out of the room without giving him a chance for more questions. Before leaving, Taijin even turned around, apologized for the interruption, and wished everyone a good day, as if nothing was happening. Already in the hallway, the urgency of the situation returned with everything. They needed to get away. Taijin guided him, trying to maintain normalcy, but the tension was palpable between them. Taijin's facade of calm crumbled as soon as they were alone. He knew he was in serious trouble and time was running out. Already in the hallway, Taijin tried to remain calm, instructing the young man to act normally. He explained that he would call a taxi as soon as they got outside and reminded him about the necessary care with suppressants at their college. But suddenly, the young man's body failed. He stumbled, completely disoriented and not understanding what was happening, being supported by Taijun at the last second. Taijun then revealed his suspicion. Someone had tampered with the coffee. He didn't know who it was, but he was sure that he was the target. What made him furious was the fact that they had dragged the young man into this mess. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, a student introduced himself as the representative of the physical education department, apologizing for not introducing himself sooner. He commented on how things were decided by superiors while observing the young one's empty chair. The representative seemed to know exactly what was happening. He told his colleagues that the young one had basically been dragged out by Taijun, and the strangest thing, in his opinion, was that the boy's class representative didn't even seem to care about the situation. The student continued to observe, with a calculating expression. He assumed that the drug had already taken effect, and that Taijun was probably texting one of his contacts. Only, when checking with a certain Park Ju-young, the answer was negative. No one had heard from Taijun. The unexpected situation left him visibly frustrated. Starting the first day like that was not in his plans. Oblivious to everything, the teacher tried to resume the class, talking about the importance of uniting theory and practice. On the table, the 2 coffee cups remained, as silent proof of what had happened. Meanwhile, Taijun was trying to help Gyeongjun get out of there, but the boy's condition was worse than he imagined. He could hardly believe the mess they had gotten into. He took Gyeongjun to a room so he could rest. The young man was completely limp and complaining about the heat, clearly under the influence of something strong. Taejun's mind went back to the coffee. He was sure someone had put something in the drink. The idea that someone would do this just to get to him infuriated him, especially because an innocent person ended up paying the price. He looked at Gyeongjun lying down and defenseless. The boy had nothing to do with it. Taejun decided he needed to find a friend of Gyeongjun to help. He couldn't just leave him in that state. He approached and shook him lightly, calling his name to try to bring him back to consciousness. But as he approached, something changed. A strong, sweet smell filled the air, and Taejun felt a chill run down his body. The situation became dangerous. Gyeongjun finally opened his eyes and, in a weak voice, called Taejun's name, completely vulnerable. His gaze, combined with the pheromones in the air, hit Taijun head-on. He realized he was losing control of the situation. He covered his nose, trying to compose himself and repeating to himself not to do anything he might regret. But staying calm was almost impossible. Every breath was a fight against his own instincts. Suddenly, a memory flooded his mind. The first time he saw Gyeongjun, when he was volunteering at the pool. He remembered that smile, the boy's playful energy, a completely different person from the one who was there now. Back in the present, Gyeongjun held his hand tightly, his face burning with fever. Taejun felt his heart clench. He didn't want to lose that boy to this mess. Not at all. Taejun didn't give him another choice. He warned that they were going to the hospital and made it very clear, with a threat, that Gyeongjun shouldn't even think about running away. It was the only way to ensure he would be safe. And so, they went. At the hospital, a nurse prepared to collect a blood sample, while Gyeongjun's companion watched everything with a serious expression. The procedure was quick and straightforward. Soon after, it was all over. Gyeongjun seemed distant, still trying to process what was happening to his body. The woman accompanying him, however, seemed to carry a huge weight on her shoulders, watching the scene in silence. She approached and apologized to Gyeongjun with a tone of someone who felt guilty for the whole situation. The woman tried to continue, but seemed to have difficulty finding the right words for that moment. Gyeongjun, in turn, tried to hide his embarrassment, not knowing exactly how to react. Later, the doctor brought the diagnosis. The drug they gave Gyeongjun interacted with his suppressants and ended up forcibly activating his cycles. The doctor's recommendation was direct and shocking. The two would need to stay very, very close. Gyeongjun couldn't hide his surprise. Stunned, Gyeongjun asked if that meant they would have to continue sleeping together. The question hung in the air, heavy and full of implications. The doctor's reaction, however, was a playful smile, as if the boy's direct question had broken some of the tension. Moments before, in the waiting room, a nurse had asked them to wait for the doctor to arrive. Alone for a moment, the weight of it all seemed to fall on Gyeongjun's shoulders. Meanwhile, outside, Taejun found a nurse. He was surprised that she knew who he was, but the girl confirmed it right away. While he waited, the sound of someone running down the hall caught Gyeonwoo's attention. He stood there, alone with his thoughts and the anxiety of what was to come. Outside, the woman who accompanied him found Taijin and exploded, asking where he had been. Taijin, in turn, just tried to say goodbye and sneak away. But she didn't let him. The woman grabbed him, visibly upset, and reminded him that she had only left for a moment to get coffee. And then, without warning, she slapped him hard on the back. The sound cracked in the hallway. The woman shouted that it was supposed to hurt, and Gyeonwoo heard everything from the room, feeling the impact of that anger. Suddenly, an iced drink was placed in front of him, breaking the tense silence. It was Taijin who had returned. He explained that, after everything, Gyeonwoo needed to drink something, a gesture of care amidst all that confusion. Gyeonwoo accepted the drink, a little surprised by Taijin's attitude. At that moment, the woman announced that she was going to sort things out and told the two to wait there, giving a direct order for Taijin not to leave. Alone again, the atmosphere became heavy. Gyeonwoo just watched Taijin, trying to understand what was going on in his head. He then threw the bottle towards his bag, giving up on drinking. But soon after, he picked it back up, complaining that his hands were slippery and asked Taijin to open it for him. Taijin simply opened the bottle and handed it back, without saying a word. That's when the room door closed. Now they were locked in there, and the inevitable conversation was about to happen. Taijin sat down next to Gyeonwoo. The silence was dense, loaded with everything that hadn't been said, and the diagnosis that would change everything. As Gyeonwoo tried to relax a little, Taijin approached, breaking the silence. The young man just grumbled, not understanding what was happening. Taijin then dropped the bomb. He said that the doctor recommended that they continue sleeping together for a while. Gyeonwoo's reaction was immediate, and, let's say, a little wet. Completely shocked, Gyeonwoo wiped his face and denied everything. He retorted that the doctor never said that, and that they didn't even have the test results yet. But Taijun insisted, arguing that there must be a reason for the doctor to have mentioned that. He then tried to defuse the situation, saying that the most important thing was that they remained friends, even if they had to continue sleeping together for a while. Taijun reinforced the idea, making it clear that this was their new reality. The suggestion left Gyeonwoo completely speechless, the reality of the situation beginning to weigh on him. Taijin tried to reassure him, promising that nothing between them would change, and asking Gyeonwoo not to distance himself because of this. Outside the room, another person was listening to everything. He seemed completely desolate, wondering how he would overcome that situation. Suddenly, he stopped, thinking he had heard something important coming from another conversation nearby. The word drug caught his attention, and he was immediately on alert. Peeking down the hall, he saw two students talking. They mentioned having sent a message to a Park Ju-young. The guy recognized the name. It was the class representative from the sports college. At that moment, the pieces began to fall into place for him. He finally understood that this explained why Gyeonwoo had been acting so strangely lately. But before he could react to his discovery, a hand came out of nowhere and covered his mouth, silencing him completely. Taken by surprise, the guy recognized the man holding him. It was the same person the students were gossiping about moments before. Taijun, in turn, just confirmed with a smile. He knew very well that the conversation was about him and wasn't going to let it go. The young man tried to resist, but it was useless. Taejun's strength was absurd, and he was completely immobilized with no chance of escape. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Gyeonwoo and Taejun's appointment was about to take a completely unexpected turn. The doctor began to explain the test results, setting the stage for a rather peculiar recommendation. She said that, to monitor Gyeonwoo's condition, it would be necessary for him and Taijun to continue having intimate relations for a while. Gyeonwoo jumped up, shocked by the suggestion. He tried to interrupt the doctor, not believing what he had just heard, but Taijun held him back right away, firmly asking him to calm down and let the professional finish the explanation. Taijun's calm reaction left Gyeonwoo even more confused. He couldn't understand how the other could be so calm. His mind went blank. The doctor's recommendation seemed absurd, and he was completely speechless. Gyeonwoo's heart raced. The thought of getting involved with Taejun in that way, not by choice, but out of medical necessity, was frightening. Still stunned, he tried to argue with the doctor, mentioning that there wasn't a completely effective contraceptive method. But, in the midst of his despair, he suddenly stopped. An idea popped into his head. Gyeonwoo then turned to Taejun and asked him to leave the office for a moment. He insisted that he needed privacy to talk to the doctor alone, making it clear that the matter was serious. Despite the request for privacy, the argument continued. Gyeonwoo lost his patience, asking Taejin to stop acting like a child. The athlete just retorted, saying that he was a child and saw no problem with it. Taejin's calmness in the face of the absurd situation made Gyeonwoo even more frustrated. He could barely process everything that was happening. Taejin, on the other hand, maintained a calm expression, as if the embarrassment only, before they left. The doctor gave one last and embarrassing warning, that he please try not to hit on anyone on the team. The young man was outraged by the reputation that preceded him. The door closed, and with the embarrassment still fresh, the young man had a realization. Apparently, Taejin had also been involved with people on the medical team there, and it was there, in the midst of that embarrassing silence, that the young man remembered a crucial detail. There was a very important question he needed to ask, something that couldn't wait. And the question he needed to ask was precisely that. With a disarming sincerity, the young man asked if it was his fault for all of this, leaving the other person completely without reaction. He then revealed the cause of everything. He had recently switched suppressants. His body was reacting in the worst way possible, and the pain was a constant reminder that the situation was getting out of control. Upon hearing the explanation, the doctor immediately realized the magnitude of the problem. Changing suppressants without any supervision was a dangerous mistake, and his body's reaction was proof of that. The doctor then corrected what they thought, showing the results on the screen. The real problem was something else. They were both actually taking extremely strong suppressants. With a simple touch on the screen, the doctor pointed to the name of the supplement. It was the real culprit behind everything that was happening to them. At that moment, it clicked. He finally understood that because Taejin was a national athlete, it was obvious that his condition would always be the priority. Everything made sense now. Faced with this harsh reality, he leaned back for a moment. There was nothing to do. Taejin's importance as a national athlete outweighed any other consideration. The professional would have to accept his secondary role in the process. Despite his companion's outrage, who thought the situation was a complete disgrace, the athlete remained indifferent. Apparently, the discussion about what was best for Taejin's future was far from over. That indifference was just a facade. Alone, the athlete finally felt the weight of shame and the consequences that were to come. The reality of the situation began to really hit him. The doctor explained that, since the condition wasn't obvious, people simply didn't realize what was happening. He seemed resigned to the situation. Gyeonwoo was confused, not understanding where the doctor was going with that observation. The doctor then leaned in, stating that his recommendation was only to avoid physical harm to any of them, but that the final decision should be Gyeonwoo's. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the dean and her companion didn't seem satisfied at all, staring at someone with a hostility that left the tension in the air. Gyeonwoo was processing the doctor's words. The whole situation was so strange that he could hardly believe this was really happening to him. Suddenly, Taejin approached him, speaking softly in his ear. The sudden proximity caught Gyeonwoo by surprise, leaving him completely speechless. Hidden, they overheard a heated argument about someone spiking the drinks. The conversation was exactly the proof they needed. To ensure silence, Taejin covered Gyeonwoo's mouth. On the other side, one of those involved denied everything, saying that he had always been against that idea. It was then that Gyeonwoo realized what Taejin was doing, discreetly recording the entire compromising conversation on his cell phone. He didn't understand all the details of what was happening, but he knew that recording was valuable evidence. Taejin had a plan. With the evidence in hand, Taejin decided it was time to get out of there and pulled Gyeonwoo by the hood so they could leave before they were discovered. To avoid being heard, he suggested they use the stairs, as the noise of the elevator could give away their presence in the hallway. Gyeonwoo felt visibly uncomfortable with the situation and, especially, with Taejin's attitude. The young man had a natural aversion to popular and flashy people, and having to collaborate with someone like Taejin made him deeply angry. As they climbed the stairs, Taejin explained with a smile that the recording would be very useful, especially if the dean tried to distort the story to protect himself. With an air of superiority, Taejin implied that he already knew everything, questioning why the other was worried about something so obvious. His attitude only served to irritate the young man even more. Gyeonwoo realized that he would have to use the recording to get some useful information from Taejin. On an impulse, he grabbed him by the collar. The sudden reaction caught Taejin completely by surprise. Gyeonwoo was visibly shaken, but Taejin's expression changed completely, taking on a serious and intimidating tone that made the younger man recoil. As they walked down the stairs, Gyeonwoo wanted to confirm if the ex in question was really Taejin. The other responded sarcastically, as if the answer was obvious. Taejin found the assumption so ridiculous that he started laughing. He explained that the mere idea of seeing that guy naked made him want to throw up because he wasn't his type. Gyeonwoo admitted that the rumor was so common that he ended up believing it. Taejin just said that people believe anything. However, he issued a warning. If Gyeonwoo continued to believe that, he would be the one who got hurt, because the other guy only had eyes for Taejin. The revelation left Gyeonwoo completely confused. Shocked by the information, he asked what he meant, wanting to know what Taejin hadn't told him. The young man grabbed Taejin again, demanding to know what Gyeonwoo had to do with that whole story. Despite the tension from before, Gyeonwoo approached Taejin, showing an intimacy that caught the other off guard. In his mind, the voices wouldn't stop. One accused him of not noticing someone's obvious feelings for Taejin, while the other tried to convince himself that their closeness was just friendship. But the reality was much more complicated, and the weight of that complication led him to make a difficult decision. In a private conversation with the doctor, Gyeonwoo made a desperate request that she please not tell Taejin anything about the treatment. He was determined to protect his friend from the truth, no matter the cost to himself. Gyeonwoo wanted the doctor to just say that there were no other options and that the best solution for their condition was simply to sleep together. He insisted, asking her to do it for him. The young man was willing to pretend that nothing bothered him, as long as Taejin was okay. The doctor, however, was unyielding. She refused to grant his request. She explained that, in addition to being against medical law, there was another, much more important reason for her refusal. The doctor pointed out that not even Gyeonwoo really wanted that. He was only and uniquely thinking about Taejin, and not about himself. Caught off guard, Gyeonwoo couldn't deny it. With a resigned smile, he admitted that it was true. He was putting Taejin first. It was a sacrifice he was willing to make, even if it hurt. The tension in his body was visible, but he thanked the doctor for her sincerity and for understanding his situation. But their conversation was interrupted. Taejin entered the office right at that moment, with an expression that made it clear that something was bothering him. Taejin sat down, stating that he had finally agreed that sleeping together was the best solution. But his expression showed that he was still upset with the idea. Gyeonwoo listened to Taejin's proposal, processing the reluctance behind that agreement. The solution was there, but the emotional cost seemed too high for both of them. A short time later, the two were already in the car. The silence was heavy, laden with the conversation they had in the office and with what was to come. Gyeonwoo couldn't resist and took a peek at Taejin. It was hard not to look, even knowing that this forced proximity was more of a medical obligation than anything else. But Taejin noticed the look in the mirror, and the brief exchange of glances broke the fragile peace. Caught red-handed, Gyeonwoo turned his face away immediately, completely embarrassed. The tension inside that car only increased with each second. It was Taejin who broke the silence, trying, in some way, to deal with the strange atmosphere that had settled between them. He asked what was going on, his voice cutting through the quiet. Taejin tried to minimize the situation, comparing it to the heavy jokes from training, but Gyeonwoo protested, stating that issues of secondary genders were not a laughing matter. Trying to be pragmatic, Taejin said there was no reason to stress. He stopped the car and went straight to the point. He knew better than anyone that the physical solution was more effective than any medicine for their problem. Then, he leaned on the steering wheel, the weight of his own logic seeming to exhaust him. It was a practical solution, but visibly uncomfortable. Then, a new idea seemed to occur to him. Taejin turned to Gyeonwoo, reconsidering his approach. For Gyeonwoo, the atmosphere inside the car was almost suffocating. Every word and every silence from Taejin affected him deeply. He swallowed hard, determined to hide the whirlwind of emotions he felt. He couldn't let Taejin realize his true feelings. Not at that moment. Gyeonwoo clasped his hands in his lap, a small gesture to try to contain the anxiety that threatened to overflow. The tension in the car finally exploded. Taejin turned to Gyeonwoo, demanding to know why he was complicating things like that. Faced with silence, Taejin began to dictate the rules. He proposed that they continue with the treatment until both of their pheromones normalized. It was a purely practical solution in his mind. Taejin explained that any irregularity in his record due to the pheromones would be a big problem for his future career in college. And more importantly, he didn't want Gyeonwoo to risk his swimming career because of something that, to Taejin, seemed like a small problem. At that moment, the traffic light turned green. Gyeonwoo, trying to bring the conversation back to reality, warned him that the light had changed. But Taejin completely ignored the traffic. Suddenly, he turned and grabbed Gyeonwoo's hand, interlacing their pinky fingers to seal a deal. He made Gyeonwoo promise that he wouldn't act weird when it was all over and their pheromones returned to normal. With a serious look, Taejin warned him that he wouldn't let it slide if he broke that promise. The car behind them started honking, but Taejin didn't let go of his hand, demanding an answer. Gyeonwoo panicked under the pressure and called out his full name, trying to make him stop. It was then that Taejin revealed the real reason for his distrust, questioning how he could believe the guy who simply abandoned him and ran off to the army in the past. Under the pressure of the honking and Taejin's accusation, Gyeonwoo finally gave in. He agreed to everything, desperately asking them to just get out of there. But Taejin wasn't finished. He pulled him close suddenly, without giving him time to react. And right there, in the middle of traffic, Taejin sealed the promise in his own way. With a satisfied smile, Taejin teased him, asking if Gyeonwoo perhaps liked things a little more intense. Gyeonwoo was completely speechless, only remembering the promise he was forced to make. He had to accept everything without complaining. But Taejin still didn't know the whole truth behind that abandonment in the past.